Today, let's do some Wii homebrew. Now, before we begin, we need to understand what's going on here. Now, a lot of people have claimed to get GameCube homebrew running on the Wii in Wii mode, when that's just complete and total bullshit. The Wii is 100% backwards compatible with the GameCube, meaning all of the homebrew and all of the soft mods and all of the hacks that we have for the GameCube will pretty much work on the Wii. Now yes, Nintendo has released some updates to the actual onboard operating system to disallow us from running some homebrew that will only run in GameCube mode. Now, most people realize that the Wii has two modes, GameCube mode or Wii mode, but you don't really understand what's going on behind the pictures inside the console. The Wii itself has the Hollywood processor, which is the main CPU, and then the Starlit processor. The Starlit is pretty much a ball and chain for Hollywood. It sets up all of the hardware and deals with all of the communication and all of the encryption, pretty much just being a supervisor to make sure that Hollywood is doing its job appropriately. Now, the first thing that comes to life in the Wii is Starlit, and Starlit says, okay, we're going to set up our encryption, we're going to set up our hardware. Do we want to be in GameCube mode, or do we want to be in Wii mode? If you're in Wii mode, everything is excessively encrypted, it's really hard to get around. There has been work on getting around the encryption, but we're really not going to get into that. It's way beyond what we're going to be doing today. Now, when you go into GameCube mode, it turns off critical Wii hardware, such as the Bluetooth for the remote controls, the Wi-Fi, the SD ports, and it turns off a good chunk of the memory, as well as shut down certain core memory and core CPU and GPU functions. That way you're really just running in bare minimal GameCube mode. Now the problem with that is Starlit will not allow us in GameCube mode to turn on any of the Wii hardware. Now Team Tweezers has found an exploit, or a memory hole, in Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess that will allow us to buffer overflow and let us run our own homebrew in native Wii mode. Now a lot of people have been using the Wii in GameCube mode, but you can't take advantage of all of that extra memory, you can't take advantage of the extra CPU power, you can't take advantage of any of the beefed up graphics power. That's because all of that's turned off. Now, in The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, you have a horse, and whatever you name the horse, if you name it an excessively long character name, it'll actually buffer overflow in Team Tweezers using their great techno hacking powers. Not even going to get into how great the work that they've been doing. I've been following them greatly, and there's some pretty awesome stuff that they've been doing. But anyway, they've figured out a way to create a chain loader, and you can actually load ELF files. Now, if you remember back from the GameCube segments, we were working with DOL files, .dol extension. Well, that's something kind of funny. I don't know a really good way of actually explaining the difference between an ELF and a DOL file is, but an ELF is pretty much just a raw binary compiled file. But a DOL file is specific to the actual GameCube and Wii that'll set up the hardware and the registers and all of that jazz. So a DOL file has an ELF file inside, and wrapped around it, this DOL file will tell the hardware explicitly how to set up and what needs to be organized for it to function. That's really a poor way of explaining it, but it's the only way in non-technical terms I can really make an analogy. So, with the Wii mode, we use ELF files, primarily right now, until things start to pick up a little bit. Now, to do an actual, any homebrew right now, as of this recording, you're going to need a Wii, some kind of SD card, a Wiimote, and some kind of GameCube controller, because a lot of the homebrew really utilizes the GameCube controller because this really makes a poor controller. And of course, you know, a Wii, and you're going to need a computer and some way to get files onto the SD card. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the computer side, and I'll go ahead and show you where to get the files, how to put them on your card, how to put them on the Wii, and how to actually set up this exploit so you can start running your own homebrew. point your favorite web browser over to Webrew.org, which is the home and the place for information about the latest Wii homebrew news and downloads. Go to the search box and type in Twilight Hack, and this should bring you directly to the Twilight Hack Webrew chain loader. And it's going to have some downloads, of course. You're going to have to download a copy of it. And then it's going to have explicit instructions on exactly how to set this up. Now, this is going to explain that you need to format your SD card in FAT16. And if you don't have a FAT16 file system, they have a special tool, the official SD card format tool, which you can download and use that. Now, you're going to have to go and take your Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess disc and look on the inner circle or the inner ring, and it'll have some print on it. And depending on what's printed on it will depend on which one of the binary files inside of the archive you downloaded you will have to use. Then the instructions will explain that you have to take your SD card and you create a folder called Private, Wii, Title, and then a folder, RZDE if you're in America, P if it's PAL, or J if it's Japan, and then put the appropriate binary file from the archive and rename it data.bin. This is the actual save game in itself that will actually be the exploit. Now, while you're there, you might as well go ahead and download some Homebrew. They do have some things. So I've made a folder with Homebrew, and one of the things I want to show you is SDElf Loader. Now, typically when you want to run some Homebrew, you're going to need boot.elf. Whatever your Homebrew is, the elf file needs to be named boot.elf, because the actual chain loader will only look for this specific file. Now, SDElf Loader, what this will do is this will be named boot.bin, in this case, there it is, and it asks you to make a folder called elf and put all of your elf files in there. So this file loader will load and allow you to select your elf files from there instead of having to take your SD card out every single time and then name your Homebrew to boot.elf. This is pretty much just a menu loader. Now, the Team Tweezers has actually released a Wii Homebrew channel, which it's on the home page somewhere. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Here we go, the Homebrew channel. No, that's the banner. It's around here somewhere. Well, it's around here somewhere. But what it does is it actually installs a Wii Homebrew channel to your Wii menu. However, it's only got a 10-minute limit, and if you don't know what you're doing, you could actually run the risk of turning your Wii into a brick. Would not recommend using that right now until it's 100% guaranteed and they have an unlimited time limit to that, which would actually replace the SDElf load. So, let's go to the console side. We've got the format, it's FAT16, we've got some elf files, we've got boot.elf, which is our SDElf loader, we've got our exploit for our Homebrew, appropriately named, and we'll go to the console side and we'll install this and we'll get some Homebrew going. Normally I like to have the console right in front of me whenever I'm doing a segment, so I can show you that the Homebrew or whatever I'm doing is not some kind of editing magic or some kind of bullshit that you'd catch on YouTube. Unfortunately, my Wii is so tangled with inside my entertainment center, I can't pull the video cables out, and I'm not going to buy another pair just for the segment. Blow me. I think I've done enough stuff on the show to have some good faith. But anyway, we'll get to the Wii side. This is a fairly easy process. It's just a matter of going into your Wii options, into the data management. Go into your save data of the Wii, and go to your SD card. And you'll have the Wii Homebrew chain loader, Twilight Hack by Team Tweezers. We're going to copy this over. Now, it's complaining because I've already copied it over. I've been doing this a while. But anyway, it should copy just fine. If it gives you any problems, chances being that you might have just named something improperly, or you just have wrong case or a wrong file name. So, we're going to go back to the Wii menu, and we're going to go ahead and run Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. This is nothing new. They've been doing this for a while. I'm really looking forward to the Wii Homebrew channel. I'm really looking forward to that. Now, whether or not Nintendo can actually block this, we're not sure yet. So, as for the actual Legend of Zelda hack, I'm pretty sure they can't. but for the homebrew channel, I'm pretty sure they can. So, where is this thing? Alright, so we're going to go ahead and start our game. We're going to notice that, by the way, it would be a good idea to back up your save game. Before you do this, you might actually lose it. So go to the Twilight hack, and we're going to go ahead and start. Now, to trigger this, you have to either leave the stage or go talk to someone. So there's a guy in front of us, and we're going to go talk to him. And this works by actually exploiting a very long name in the actual horse name. It's supposed to be Epona or something like that. By having an excessively long name, it allows us to actually trigger a buffer overflow, smash a stack, and then have a preliminary chain loader. So, we got our controller, and the front SD elf loader working just fine. And it's going to say, press A to display the selection menu. Okay, pressing A. So we've got MP3 player, Tetris, and Snake. Alright, let's go with, yeah, Tetris is always good. And it's going to read a bunch of the blocks off the SD card. It's going to load into memory. It's going to take a little while. And then eventually it'll load. Now there's a bunch of homebrew that's being developed. There's actually a DVD player. We've got an N64 emulator, Super Nintendo emulator, Genesis, Sega Master System. And here we go. Hey, look, it's Tetris. Whoop-de-doo. Like we've never played Tetris before. Yay. Hey, it's Tetris. There we go. Back into the SD loader. And we'll play some Snake. Now we'll go ahead, read from the memory card. This is Wii Homebrew. There's a lot out there, and there's a lot more coming, but there's been a lot of grounds when it comes to breaking the actual disk encryption and file system encryption, allowing us to create homebrew channels and allowing us different methods for running our own homebrew code. The problem is, Nintendo might get a little pissed off at people and start locking the system down a little bit more or fixing the problems. In fact, I believe it's Daytale. They released the Wii Freeloader, which allows you to play other region Wii games on the actual Wii. Yeah, Nintendo pretty much locked that down already. So there's actually a lot of progress that is being made. It's just being very slow, and people really aren't releasing too much information right now, mainly because some of the things that they're doing could be used or explicitly for piracy, and there is a severe anti-piracy motif inside the homebrew scene. If you go into any of the Wii homebrew channels, especially on WeeBrew, and you mention anything whatsoever according to piracy, they will crack down on that ban hammer like a son of a bitch, and to be honest, I can't say that I blame them. As soon as there's something new that comes out when there could be any kind of piracy involved, the piracy scene pretty much just sinks their claws into it. The corporations sink their claws in it so they can push out some kind of product to make a profit, completely destroying all the wonderful work that the homebrew scene's actually doing. If you really want an up-to-date list of what's going on with the Wii homebrew, I would highly recommend going on to FNet, even though I hate FNet, and go into the actual Wii Dev channel. It's on the WeeBrew website. But I'm not going to go and showcase every single chunk of homebrew out there. I'll put a lot in the show notes. As always, you hit the forums, go to the show notes, and I'll link to WeeBrew, IRC, as much as information as I can. There's no point in me actually giving you more information that's already on Google. So, hopefully this will last a while, and hopefully we'll be able to see a little bit more in future episodes.
Well, a lot of us have old computers sitting around the house, like old 386s or even slower than that, and we really don't know what to use them for. Today I'm going to show you a little program that might be able to make some use of it. Basically, you can turn any of your old 386s, whatever, up to current computer. You can turn them into an information kiosk. There's this site called startty.com. If you log on to there, you can set up an account and you can make your computer show world news, headlines, weather forecasts, stock prices, time dates, quotes, jokes of the day, to-do list, a bunch of shit like that. They're adding more and more stuff every day. All you need is a text display that can display 40 columns times 7 rows and either an Ethernet port or a serial port on your computer. And you just basically need to be able to telnet into their site, and it'll display all the information on your screen. let's go over to the computer and I'll show you how to set this up. The first step to setting this up is we're going to need to log into startty.com and create an account. So click the sign up link, agree to their terms and services. Now that I got the confirmation email and activated my account, we're going to need to log into this site. Okay. And go to set up your computer. So now we set it up. We want kiosk 1, the screen size. You can play with that. Use whatever one fits your computer the best. I'm going to tell you now, it's going to look like shit on my computer because I'm using a much higher resolution than this is really designed for. Whatever. Anyway, set your time zone. Where the fuck is mine? You know what? I really don't care. I'll just pick any. And now we select what we want. Let's see. We can have a calendar. News. Let's see. Weather conditions. Let's see, what else? Time of date. As you see, you can get the point. You can play with this and set it up how you like. Now that we updated the settings, we can minimize this and open up whatever Telnet program you use. I usually use Putty, but I was having problems with this, so tried using Hyperterminal, and it actually works. So, I'm going to connect using TCP/IP, and the address is startty.com, and it'll be port 50,000. Now just log in with the username that you set up. And there it goes. Unfortunately, I can't seem to fit this all on the screen at once, but I guess you get the point. This will cycle through all the different menus that you have set up, and this will run on virtually any computer out there, anything that you can telnet through. So if you got like old computers sitting around you're not using, or say you got like a Linux router set up that you want to do something else with, you want to justify running the monitor or whatever, you can throw this on and make use of some old equipment. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this segment, and maybe you can make some use out of your junk.
Today we're going to construct something called a bi-quad antenna. Now this is a directional antenna that should yield anywhere from 5 to 8 decibels of gain. If you notice behind me, I've got a satellite dish. You can mount the bi-quad antenna on the end of the dish arm here, which we'll do that in another segment, and we can get significant more gain. But on to the primary topic, bi-quad antenna. The bi-quad antenna, it constructs of a rear metal plate of some sort that is going to be used as a reflector. And then we have this double diamond driven element, which I call the bow tie element, which is going to actually actively receive antenna signals, radio signals. The back plate to this will be one wavelength. So in this case, it's close to 5 inches, 4.9 inches or something like that. It really doesn't matter if you go over the actual, as long as you're not below one wavelength. Each side of this is going to be quarter wavelength. So each one of these is quarter, so we have a wavelength on each side. The distance between the reflector and the driven element will be 1/8 wavelength. So in this case, it's about 13 millimeters here. Each one of these is about 31.5 millimeters. Now, creating this, there are a couple of ways of doing it, and there are instructions on the internet. One common way, which I'll put a link to of a video on the show notes, is using a copper PCB board. You drill a hole through the center. If you notice, I've got some nice silver marks here, so I can actually get nice 90-degree angles, so I know exactly where my dead center is. And I used a through-hole panel mount to affix the panel mount end connector. Now, you take a PCB and you drill through it, and you get a copper pipe, and you feed that, you solder the copper pipe through the hole. The copper pipe acts as the actual separator, and then you solder everything together. But the problem is, one, PCBs are expensive. Two, you take a blowtorch to a PCB, you run the risk of heat expansion, breaking the copper away from the actual board. It's happened to me a couple of times. It's a very expensive mistake, not something you want to go through repeatedly. Getting the actual copper tubing, all you need is about 2 inches or less, but they only come in lengths of at least 8 feet. So copper is actually an expensive material on the market nowadays. I don't feel like spending $30 for a 10-foot length of copper when I only need 2 or 3 inches. The third thing is the actual crimpers. They're expensive. Not everyone wants to go out and spend $80 on crimpers. So although the antenna is solid as all hell, minus 1 point, the driven element, the double diamond biquad element of creating a biquad antenna that is easy to obtain the components for, easy to obtain the materials for, and doesn't break the bank when we make it. So today I'm going to show you how to make a biquad antenna out of an old CD spindle, some aluminum tape, a little bit of 20 or 22 gauge copper wire, and a 4-hole panel mount connector, end connector. And of course, we got a couple of nuts, bolts, and other various things, common tools, soldering iron, and all that stuff. So we're going to get to the table side, and I'm going to get to the beginning of creating this kick-ass antenna. Okay, here's our table of crap. Soldering iron, typical tools, screwdriver, Sharpie marker, desoldering braid, solder, panel mount end connector, 4-hole variety. You can use the 2-hole substitution. I would recommend the 4-hole. The through-hole will not work. Aluminum tape, relatively inexpensive. You can get it at most hardware stores. This is used for heating and air conditioning in central air conditioner ducts. We'll need some kind of utility knife, razor blade, or X-Acto knife. Screws. You can use screws, nuts, or bolts. It really doesn't matter. This is to actually affix the connector to our CD spindle. A 25-pack would be the best, or a 10-pack, but they are kind of hard to find. You can use something else, but then you're going to have this really huge, muffin cake pan top, as they're called, or a cake pan top sticking out of the top. Okay, away so it's nice and fresh. And then I take the panel mount and I stick it in like so, and I line it up, and I drilled a couple of holes through it. Now what I'm going to do is the connector can actually fit through like so, and it just so happens that standard PC screws will thread into the actual connector quite nicely. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and I take some of this tape, and I'm going to line the tape over the top of it, and I'm going to get a nice even coat of aluminum tape. Keeping in mind this is actual metal. If you want to actually go the extra mile, you can actually take sheet metal, like I've explained before. Sheet metal is easily procured from old cookie tins from the holidays. A lot of times it's covered in paint or lacquer, so just do something to get rid of the paint, wire wheel brush or some sandpaper or whatever, get it nice, fresh, uncovered metal. So I'm going to go ahead off camera because this is going to be kind of boring, and I'm going to go ahead and cover this in aluminum tape. Here we go, not too difficult. Went ahead and lined the entire thing with foil tape. I used the ridge over here as a guide. I just took my utility knife, scored around the side to peel off all the extra. You don't have to worry too much about getting wrinkles and such. in the foil. Just try not to have excessive amounts of bubbles and boils and such. And then I'm going to go ahead and just fit this on. I'm going to feed the screws through the front of this through the holes that I've pre-drilled. I've got three of the four screws, or I guess they're screws. If you need to use nuts and bolts, that is just fine. If you get any tears, I mean, we've got a lot of light in here, so it's reflective. If you get any tears, it shouldn't be too big deal if you get tears in the aluminum foil, but if you really got a bad tear, you can go ahead and put some tape over it just to cover it up. Now, I've got this component. It's called a ring connector. These are usually found in automotive applications. It's actually very common in household to find. And this is going to be the way we're going to attach the driven element to the shield. Because the problem is, with aluminum, you can't solder it onto it. And you can't solder onto tape either. So, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take my needle nose pliers, like so. I'm just going to bend this back at 90 degrees. Just like that. And this is going to sit right here, as close as possible, but without touching. So readjust it if need be, and I'm going to go ahead and screw this on. Lo and behold, let's see if I can get a nice close-up shot of this. There it is. Affixed quite nicely, not touching the signal, and well grounded. So that's the reflector part. If you have any kind of sheet metal that you're going to be soldering onto, I'd highly recommend solder on either bolt on a ring connector, screw on a ring connector, or solder your wire to this first, because if you're using a CD spindle and you're using any kind of blowtorch or soldering gun or soldering iron for an excessively long amount of time, remember, this is plastic. It's going to melt. So, we're going to go ahead to the clamp side. Actually, no, before we go to the clamp side, we need to make the bow tie. 20 gauge copper wire. I actually got a meat skewer here, and I marked 2 points on it. This point here, right here, that is, I do believe, 16 millimeters or 15 millimeters, 1/8 wavelength of center frequency. This is half wave, half wavelength of center frequency. And what I'm going to use this for is a mark. What I need to do is I need to make the bow tie element by creating successive 90-degree angle bends. And instead of taking a ruler time and time again, I'm just going to use this as a little mark and bend. Okay, there's our 90 degree. We're going to go in with the pliers, make a nice 90-degree angle bend. Just like that. And then we're going to measure it in again. 90 degree. Right about there. 90 degree. Just like so. There's another one. And we're going to make another one. Now, where are we? Make another 90 degree here. Would be a good idea to take some kind of 90 degree angle straight edge of sorts and make sure you have, in fact, 90 degree angle. So I'm going to go ahead and off camera, I'm going to finish this. This next one would be 90 degrees bent this way. I'll just go ahead and do it. If you're off like a half a millimeter or a millimeter or so, it's no big deal. It's practically impossible for us to get that precise. There is another bend. And then we're going to get another bend. Okay. Go ahead and made all of the bends. I've corrected them and such. And I've left an excessive amount of wire sticking off the ass end. This is actually what's going to be one of the two leads. We also have to solder a lead to this side as well. One on this side, one on this side. And I'll go to the clamp side now, and we're going to go ahead and solder all of this together and get it spaced off of the reflector. Typical 30-watt soldering iron, typical solder, nothing special. Have a small surplus piece of copper. I'm going to solder this coming straight out of the top here, and you'll see why in one moment. Fill the solder cup up with solder. Do not use your bare hands when dealing with any of this wire. It will heat up very quickly and it will burn like a son of a bitch. Be forewarned. As usual, when soldering, be very careful that this center conductor over here, this white material around the center of this thing, that's actually polypropylene or high impact polystyrene. Either way, it does not react well to heat, so do not heat it up excessively. Now, I've got that meat skewer that I've marked right here. This mark is the 1/8 wavelength, and this wire, this center wire, the entire bow tie needs to be that far away from the center, or sorry, away from the reflector. So using this as a guide, I'm going to mark that and I'm going to cut it. Now on the bow tie itself, this actual rounded edge right here, not the edge that has the two pieces taken apart, this rounded edge needs to be soldered to just that. Now I'm also going to take my my meat skewer or whatever else. I mean, this is just a convenience thing. You don't have to do it this way. I'm going to mark slightly longer than the actual wavelength because you can't cut something to be longer. You can only cut it to be shorter. So this is going to have to fit into that center conductor, or sorry, into the shield, and this is going to fit to the center conductor. So what I have to do is keep trimming this away until it fits. This is pretty much just luck of the draw now. There we go, that should be okay. Another cool thing about using this this ring connector over here is if you cut the leg too short, you have a lot of forgiveness and play because of this actual solder cup that they have here. Now technically this is a crimp-on connector, but if you don't tell, I won't tell. I'm going to go ahead and try to fill this up with some solder. And we're going to go ahead and feed this in. Cool down too quick. You might need to use a soldering gun on this because it is a relatively thick piece of wire. The actual ring connector itself. There we go. Now we're going to pre-tin the signal wire. And we're going to pre-tin the bend in the actual element. And then we're going to bring these two together, tack them on. Then we're going to take this and we're going to pre-tin both sides of that, and we're going to tack those on. And from this point, your biquad's built. However, I would actually sit there and try to readjust all of the elements very gently, and then using the meat skewer yet again, you can easily just go along this track and see where you have a low point and readjust, making sure that you're 1/8 wavelength apart from the reflector. This side's a little low. There you go. Biquad's built. Now what we got to do is go to the computer side, and well, now that I look at it, the elements are a little mangled. I'm going to go ahead off camera, and I'm going to try to clean them up a bit. That's going to be a boring process, and I'm going to go to NetStumbler and see how this thing performs. Alright, it's not the prettiest thing I've ever made, but with a can of matte black spray paint, wouldn't look too bad. Check out the show notes. I'll put some links to my Picasa page where I've actually made a really nice looking biquad with a portable tripod. This is just a little desktop camera tripod with a 90-degree angle bracket, so that way I can actually stand the thing up. Got NetStumbler going. Let's see what NetStumbler says about this antenna. There we go. Not too shabby, huh? From the typical internal antenna to the biquad. Now look at all these access points. Now if I actually take the biquad and pan around, you'll see a whole bunch more access points start popping up. Now like I said, the biquad will give you anywhere from 6 to 8 decibels of gain, so that's almost double, if not 1.5 times your actual signal strength. Every 3 decibels, now I don't think I've explained decibels. And why is NetStumbler in the negatives? NetStumbler is measuring loss between your access point, free air, to your computer, or to your receiver. And it's measured in negative decibel gain, meaning that's how many decibels you're losing. Ideally, 0 decibels mean no loss whatsoever. So by having a 0 decibel, which means you have 100% signal, you're losing nothing. Now right now, this antenna is actually should be giving us 6 decibels of gain. Every 3 decibels, you double your signal quality. You double your power. So this is giving us anywhere from 6 to 8, so it's either triple or better than a typical antenna. And as you saw with the internal antenna on the computer, we're getting 90 decibels of loss. With this antenna, we're getting about 70. And if I actually position the antenna to where the access point is, being a directional antenna, you can actually pinpoint where the access point's actually located, or a rough idea. So if we were to actually go through NetStumbler, let's go to DayZ05. Anything there? Nope. How about Big Daddy? Okay, Big Daddy must be pointing where? Honestly, I have no idea. There should be a couple of Linksys. Here we go, Linksys. I know one of these Linksys is actually pointed way up there. Which one, I don't remember. I think it's this one. Now keeping in mind that I'm inside my house right now that's completely made out of brick, and the walls are actually lined with a wire mesh because of the construction age. We use like stucco and all that crap on the walls and such. So right now this antenna is actually performing quite admirably, even though it's just half-assed. It's just some wire, a connector, some screws, an old CD spindle. Oh, and if you wanted to see what this would actually look like, here's a 50-pack. Come on. Yeah, that's what it would look like with a 50-pack. So if you can get your hands on a 25-pack or such, great. Now, I have figured out a way to cut down the CD spindles. You take some masking tape, some actual, or painter's tape, and you take a mathematical compass, like I've been using in a lot of the antenna segments to measure the actual diameter and lengths of things in metric. And you scribe a circle all the way around, and using a hacksaw or another tool, you cut it. But these tops are tapered, meaning it's a smaller diameter at the top than it is at the bottom. So, if you cut this, it's not going to fit around the actual grooves of the CD spindle. You'll have to take a heat gun. A hair dryer will not work, I've tried. Use a heat gun, or put the thing inside of a toaster oven for a little while, soften up the plastic, go and get some glue, put the glue around the edge of the actual CD spindle and wedge the thing on and clamp it there. You'll have to take something and clamp the top and the bottom. Again, look at my Picasa page. I'll link to it on the forums as well as the show notes, and I'll show you what that looks like in the after process. So this is a biquad antenna. To tell you the truth, it's my favorite of all antennas so far. It's better than a waveguide, better than a compact collinear, better than a Yagi. It's small, it's portable, offers a bit of gain, and when you got a satellite dish and you put it at the end of the arm, the gain is absolutely phenomenal. So I'm going to end this segment here, so have some fun. If you have any questions or comments, IRC, you should already have the address. It's on our homepage. It's also on the website. You can all go through. You can IRC through the website. Check out the show notes that are on the forums, or contact me through the forums. All right, everyone. Don't steal Wi-Fi, especially mine.
Well, nowadays you use SD cards in pretty much everything, from MP3 players to digital cameras. Even the Nintendo Wii uses them for memory. So Today we're going to show you how to recover files off your SD card, because a lot of people think you format the card and, pictures of your dog eating peanut butter off your girlfriend's snatch and stuff like that is gone forever. Nobody will ever find it. That's not quite true. This card here, I've just formatted it at least 20 times, full format. And I'm going to show you a program today called Test Disk 6.8. It's completely free, it's open source, and it does one hell of a job. It works a lot better than any other program I've tried. So we're going to go over to the computer now, and I'll open up the program and show it to you. Okay, first thing I'm going to put in the SD card and open it up. As you can see, it's blank. There's nothing in here. It's completely empty, right? Okay. We'll open up Test Disk. I'll put a link up on the screen somewhere of where to download it, because I don't remember the website off the top of my head. Open up the Windows folder, because I'm using Windows. This will work on, I believe, virtually pretty much any operating system. And then click the Photo Recovery Windows executable file. Okay, let's see if I can get this all on screen for you. Now select the SD card. Easiest way to tell, because all your hard drives are going to be bigger than a gig. Your SD card's only going to be a gig or two, so look for something the size of your SD card. Easiest way to tell if you're a Windows person and you don't know this. Anyway, hit enter. Pretty much all digital cameras they use Intel format, so hit enter again. I select the entire card to recover. Hit enter again, and then you want like FAT, NTFS, such and such, whatever, under the other category. So hit enter again one more time. Now just click the Y for yes, and it's going to start recovering. Now this could take anywhere between I guess between 3 and about 10-15 minutes if you have a 2 gig card, depending on the size of your card and how many files you have on it. It could take a little while, so I'm going to skip ahead and I'll come back when this is just about finished recovering. Okay, I'm back. We got a little bit under a minute left, and if you can see right over here, it tells you exactly how much time's left. Of course, it tells you how much time it's been working on it. Here it shows you, so far we've recovered 167 JPEG files and one other file recovered. Might find a couple more. Got about 15 seconds left. And it found 2 text files, and now it's finished. So if we go to the folder where the test disk is installed, it'll create a recovery directory. And if you look in here, let's see what we found. Okay, I'll stop recovering SD cards I get from Fox. Anyway, let's see what else is on here. We got some text files, which I'm not going to be able to make out what they are. And looks like we got a video here. Let's see what this is. Of course, it's BSoD. But anyway, as you see, it can recover multiple types of files, not just pictures. And this program, like I said, I've tried quite a few out there. A lot of pay for ones, and they don't work nearly as good as this. This is completely open source. And I'll post a link up on this screen there somewhere again, if you didn't catch it before, so you can download this program. And I hope it helps you out and you have lots of fun with it.